recount?
I think we just speak.
Hi, I'm Dave Ruden from the Ruden Report, and welcome to the debut episode of the Ruden Report, live from the library. We're here at the Westport Library at the Trev's Forum, and I'm very excited to collaborate with the library. It's just amazing facilities here, and going to have periodic shows, talk professional, college, high school sports. We're supposed to open the debut episode 2 weeks and have it in a high school preview. And because of events, I'm still hoping we're going to have a high school preview at some point. But for right now, the state of high school football is very much in flux, and that's going to be the subject. We have a great cast of people here today. We have 4 FCIAC coaches who are going to come on in a little bit, but we're going to start off with our players. Let me introduce everybody joining us here. First, I'm very fortunate to have Jeff Jacobs, the esteemed columnist for Game Time in Hearst, Connecticut. I have Jack Wallace, the quarterback at St. Joseph, the reigning Gatorade State Player of the Year. From Brian McMahon, I have Christian Renie, who's looking at some possibilities as Jack in terms of where you're going to play next year. From Staples, we have Sam Milberg, who's going to be at Holy Cross next year. And Matt Gulbin from Wilton, and he's Wake Forest bound. So just for people who may not be familiar with the situation right now, very, very quickly, over the last month, and by the way, opinions expressed here are not the opinions of the library. I have to mention that.
I think being quiet is the opinion of the library.
Over the last month, going back to July 31st, the CIAC announced that there would be an abbreviated, regionalized football schedule, and everybody was excited. 6 games and 2 additional playoff-type games. Then on August 10th, the CIAC Football Committee voted 9-1 to move football to the spring. 2 days later, the CIAC Board of Control, which oversees the decisions, went against the football committee and decided that football was still on. From there, we went to conditioning practices, which the CIAC then paused because they wanted to meet with the Department of Public Health, which recommended that football be moved to the spring. From there, they decided the CIAC and DPH was going to meet together and conditioning would be allowed. And then sports were going to go forward. And then that was until last Friday when we got the word that the CIAC was following DPH and canceling the season, which is when I had the idea that we should rush this show together and talk about it. And then, as we all know, last night, were you guys all at the protest last night? We had over 1,000 players and some parents protesting, and then Governor Ned Lamont went on TV and I thought sort of spoke out of both sides of his mouth in terms of saying, we're going to follow the DPH and we're going to make sure that we can play football hopefully in the spring, but I want the CIAC and DPH to work together tomorrow and see if we can play football safely. So where we stand, I don't really know. I've got whiplash. Let's start with you guys. Kind of feel like you've been on a roller coaster this last month, and how has it affected you?
As a team, it's affected us both mentally and emotionally, like not knowing whether we're going to play or not, and being on and off for conditioning and lifting. But we've stayed strong through it, and we're staying hopeful and positive.
For us, it kind of sucks because we're really looking forward to the season. We have a lot of good players that are coming back from last year, and we were really looking forward to the season, basically.
It's hard for us, we're trying to still build something with our new head coach, and the uncertainty of not having a season is really draining on us. We're all trying to work hard, stay motivated, but with everything going on, with the state saying so much, it's hard to sort of keep that focus.
Yeah, we've really just been trying to keep our hopes up and continue to work out and condition, and we're really hoping for a season, but this back and forth, we really feel like sort of ping pong balls because it's not very good for our mental health, and this is a really important subject in our lives, and it's unsettling to keep having to go back and forth.
Do you feel like your emotions have been toyed with?
I would say so, yeah, just because they haven't really stuck with a plan for a while. The plan switches every other week. It feels like now So it's hard for us to stick to being positive, even though we're trying to stay strong through it.
Yeah, I would agree. It's really nerve-wracking for like me and the other seniors on my football team because this is the year when we have to go to college, and like college is recruiting, so like it's really nerve-wracking for us.
Yeah, it's just really hard to sort of stay focused and sort of be like, okay, they're sticking with this plan, and then a week later they're changing it. So emotionally, it's just been like a roller coaster.
Yeah, I think it's really been emotionally pretty stressful, and it's all really important to us in this game. So we take it seriously, and to have this back and forth, it's really hasn't been good.
How did you guys interpret what was said yesterday? Do you still feel like there's a crack in the door that could still be wedged open?
Oh, definitely. Like I said before, since we're staying positive, we're looking for anything that there's going to be a season of any sort. So, I mean, it's good that they keep the door open at least.
Jeff, how do you interpret where we are right now?
Well, it's really difficult. I could spend the rest of the show talking about it and then say, I don't know what's going to happen briefly. But, yeah, I think that the DPH and the CIAC has combined for what I consider a clown show over the last 6 to 8 weeks. I, for one, have gone from, everybody's yelling about the science, Dave, and two things really upset me about that. One is that the science, it's like everything else today, it's become political. So for some reason, the right or the conservatives are for football, and the lefts and the liberals are not for playing football. There's a lot of that out there, and that disappoints me beyond belief. The second thing is the science. And both sides, if you want to fill your agenda with the science, you can. This number, that number. In July, I'll be honest with you, I thought they should try and play cross country and swimming, and I would have said no to football 100% in the middle of July. As time went on, and the CIAC was actually ahead of me in my thinking with soccer. And some of those, I said, okay, so they think that those sports are good. Then, so that kind of led me into saying, all right, I'm against playing football, but I want to hear some explanations. Well, as we've all seen, everybody's punted out beyond belief. So to get the truth has been really hard to disseminate. And now, as we've gone on, and they have it, don't have it, and then before the last cancellation, I became really, really focused on 2 weeks into school, up to a month of other states playing. Let's get the latest, best data, make a decision at the end of September. If some people, one side's not going to like it, one side's going to like it, but doggone it, man, you're going to get the latest, best information on it. And if that means, and the thing that just confuses me beyond belief, that the CIAC hasn't just come out right and said, like, look, if we're not going to play fall football 11-11, we're going to try and play spring football 11-11. Not that the alternative is 7-on-7.
Yeah.
It should be 11-on-11 fall, 11-on-11 spring, and then 7-on-7 in spring if they want to play it.
Right, which I don't think anybody by the spring wants to do, but I agree.
That's the chronology in my mind.
No, give there a chance to be some sort of a season. And again, we're dealing with the coronavirus, which is a great unknown. And actually, because we have, I guess, the guys here are definitely pro-play, right. and we're not anti-play. We're both coming from similar but not the same positions. We spoke yesterday, so why don't we tell the guys where we're coming from, and you guys feel free to comment. You agree, disagree, why you disagree.
I would say right now, if I had to vote tonight for a game tomorrow night, not a game October 1st, for tonight, for tomorrow night, I would vote no. But having said that, 3 weeks from now, or 2 weeks from now, I might vote yes, if I'm convinced as the numbers come along. The one thing that's really in my mind is we're going to try and sneak in a 6-week season, right? If you have October 1st to November 15th, is that definitely so dangerous or not that bad in the science mind versus say if you late winter, spring of March 10th to April 15th or 16th, is that time frame what people are looking at? Is that definitely 100% safer than that 6-week period in the fall? I really want them to try and look. I know there's no definitive answer, and the only thing that I promise will only lose it for the rest of the year is if they have a week open in the spring from like April 15th to April 22nd, 25th, and they say it's going to be a baseball season, and then it rains every day and nobody plays, then somebody ought to go crazy and somebody ought to lose their jobs, because every day from here on out is important to athletics in high schools in Connecticut. Every day, single day.
And you've moved off a little bit because you were a couple of weeks ago anti-football, and you've kind of, as this has progressed.
I don't like that word anti-football.
Well,
I could show you my emails and
you were more so against playing than you are now.
I was more. I thought the best safety for the players was not to play. And now I am open to the latest, best scientific data and comparisons to football that is going on to give us the best possible answer.
And that's, we're in pretty similar spots right now, and I've been consistent from the beginning, and it probably sounds like I'm equivocating, but I don't think I am in that. We have good metrics in the state, we've been healthy, and if people say we want to err on the side of caution, I can understand that position, but I can also understand the argument, and given what we've gone through, I've probably moved closer to, or more so to this side, is, you know what, our metrics are good, school just started, let's have 2 weeks of school, let's make sure the metrics are safe, that schools have been introduced safely, and then if that's the case, let's introduce extracurricular activities, including football, which is basically the schedule that we were on until last Friday and may still be on. So curious what you guys think. If I were to make the argument, hey guys, we've been safe in the state because of that, you guys have been able to go out and socialize somewhat and see your friends, we haven't been quarantined, we need to stay safe. I'm sure you don't agree with that. What's your response to that one?
I think like what you guys both said about like the 2 weeks, see how school reopening was, and the CIA probably should have stayed with that plan, but they, I guess they just hopped off it too soon without a reason to tell us as well, because we didn't know, they didn't give us any reason of why they didn't, or why they did not follow that plan originally.
Yeah, I agree with what he said about them not giving us a reason. They just kind of like cut the season, which is kind of really messed up. That's how I feel. But I think that the 2 weeks like of testing to see how school works and then like playing football would be smart. I agree with that.
Yeah, I think they really just jumped the gun with that one. You know, one day they say we're playing, the next day they say we're not, and like it's only football, and I was sort of confused by that because I always thought the original standpoint was if one sport's canceled, they're all canceled. And I think that sort of hurt football even more because we were all like, we're watching our friends play other sports and we're just sitting on the sidelines now. In that regard, like the 2 week testing, like why is that only applicable for football, and why is like every other sport sort of in full practice and they're out of their like 10 cohort thing? So it's hard to see that and then be like, why is it just football?
Yeah, I agree with Sam. You know, I disagree with the singling out of football only. You know, you see, you know, volleyball and other fall sports starting to practice, and you know, it just seems a little unfair that, you know, they get the opportunity to play the sport they love, and we're just left on the curb, you know. Yeah, I don't think it's fair.
Do you guys consider football a more of a high-risk sport than other sports? I'm just curious where.
Depends what sports we're talking about, because clearly we know like soccer's face-to-face contact, unless, I don't know if they're wearing masks or not in the game, if they're making them or not, but I know we could have worn them with the face shields like the colleges are wearing and stuff like that.
I ran cross country. The worst I ever got hurt was running into a thorn bush.
I don't know, mine was just turned ankles coming down on somebody else's sneakers playing basketball, but.
I am curious, you guys hit on that. You know, I did the numbers, and there's like 26,000 competitors that are going to get to play if we add up all the sports that have been approved. Away from girls volleyball, plays will be up to 31,000. There's about 85 to 9,000 football players. Do you feel I'm going to put it this way. As a sports writer, I find real joy in those 30,000 kids getting to compete. But if I was a parent and my kid played basketball in high school, if I was your parents today, I'd be driving myself nuts trying to figure out how to get you guys to play. That's biased. You know what I mean? Or, I'm not saying that journalists or media do not have bias and some have more than others, but we're trying to find a equitable solution versus rooting for something and just trying to make that agenda happen. Because my son makes fun of me when I start talking like how objective I was. He just goes like, yeah, and if I didn't get to play, you'd be screaming and yelling. So, I mean, I try to be honest on that point, I think parents really want their kids to play.
Are you all surprised what an emotional issue this has become? I mean, it's really snowballed from displeasure, unhappiness to over 1,000 people protesting in Hartford yesterday.
And Fox News and we're kind of a national story.
Yeah, I mean, it is getting some national play as well. So are you surprised how this has happened?
Well, that was our point in the beginning, to try and get awareness for it, because clearly all of us here and all those kids that showed up and parents and coaches they don't just love the game, it's like a passion and live for the game, and that's why we're pushing so hard for it.
How's the coordination been? I mean, after the news came down last Friday, Saturday, all of a sudden, it almost seemed like at the same time on social media, particularly Instagram and Twitter, let us play. Everybody was holding up the same signs. How have you guys all coordinated, not just with your own teams, but the rest of the FCIAC and indeed the whole state?
Yeah, so, right now we're really all one family. When we're playing, obviously we're competing against each other, but right now we're the same team. We're fighting for the same cause, to play the sport we love. But it's been through group chats, social media, just trying to get stuff out there and trying to organize things, to try to save our season, really.
I was going to ask a question. This crossed my mind driving down here. It's probably the last thing you want to hear, but adults are always telling young people there's lessons to be learned here. I was wondering if through this, have you learned some stuff? I mean, I'm not asking for a final conclusion on exactly what you learned, but what are some of the things that have crossed your mind that you've seen through a really elongated and now pretty controversial situation?
I think, just that life's not fair. And, I always knew that, but it was just kind of amplified by this because, this subject hits home for me, my family. So, I think everything doesn't always go your way and, stuff's going to happen. But I think that's probably the biggest lesson I've learned.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And then also just sort of the idea of fighting for what you want and what you believe in. And everyone on this stage and almost every football player in the state, I feel like is just fighting right now for anything to sort of play football, and that's what we all want. That's all what we believe in. And it was on Friday night they canceled it, and then in a matter of an hour I was added to 2 group chats. We were planning on what we were doing the next day. You never see that. We're all just one big family, and we all sort of came together. So that whole idea of fighting for what you believe in is just so important now more than ever, and I think that's a big life lesson I learned from this whole situation.
Okay.
The big life lesson I learned from this whole situation is that nothing's really guaranteed. This season wasn't guaranteed to us because we never knew that COVID was going to happen. We never knew that any of this was going to happen, basically. So that's a real big life lesson that I learned.
Kind of curious, you two already know where you're going to be next year. Jack, you got some good offers, and I'm sure, more film you'd like to get even more. And Christian, you're in a situation where you really need to play to get tape. You're hoping some Division III schools are going to look at you. What about for you two in particular, and really you, Christian, in terms of what a season means in terms of being able to play in college?
The season's really important to me, especially this season, because I really started getting varsity burned last season, which was my junior year, because I just got back from an injury. So I really wanted this season to be my breakaway season for colleges to really get recruited. So I'm really hoping for at least a spring season.
Well, since like the NCAA dead period, I wasn't able to go to any camps or any visits this summer at all. So this season film would have been very helpful for me for offers and to have more choices to go to and look at.
I wanted to ask the guys about 7-on-7 football. I know it doesn't replace 11-on-11, but at least just talking to you today, and I did a column the other day on the North Branford quarterback who just came out and texted he wasn't going to play, and it was like 4,000 likes. I said, I think I'll jump on this because obviously a lot of people are agreeing with him. Is it leaving the linemen out? One thing that strikes me, football is a real team sport. A lot of sports are team sports, but I think there's a certain camaraderie that I've noticed in football, and having not played it in high school but played other sports, I'm a little jealous of, and then watching my kid be really good at basketball, but not being in like it was like, I hate to use the word clique because there's a negative connotation to that, but the guys that played football at his high school, to this day, 4 years out, they still have this bond. So there's something in there that pulling you guys apart between 11-on-11 and 7-on-7. It doesn't strike you guys fancy, right? I mean, could you just talk about that?
It doesn't, because in football, like if you mess up, then your buddy gets a face mask right to the ribs. So that's one reason that brings us closer together. And yeah, 7-on-7 doesn't compare to 11-man football.
Just really something to do in the off season, so you get to have some sort of football, really, right?
Yeah, I would say it's like a training mechanism, a training tool.
Do you guys being left out, does that, I mean, what's your, I'm interested to see, we have two big linemen here. What's your kind of, if they had lineman competition or anything like that, or what's your kind of view on that?
Yeah, I mean, that's not really football in my opinion, you know. Our team's been playing sevens for a little while now. Like, they've been getting their reps there. But, I mean, the goal is never to play 7-on-7. Like, there's 7-on-7 leagues, especially in, like, Florida and the South that I know are really big, but that's just not real football, you know. To, like, make the point, people don't really get recruited off 7-on-7 film. Like, there's no tackling, there's no hitting. It's just, like, a modified version. And especially for linemen, like, we were talking about that bond. Like, we have such a good bond with our quarterbacks, our running backs, our receivers. Like, not being able to go out with them is just, it would be so disappointing for us, only being able to watch them. Like, our whole job is to keep them looking good, basically, so they get all the highlights, and not being able to do that would just be, it would be terrible.
I'm curious, one thing you hear most from parents is the mental health component. That's something they've been stressing a lot. What's this going to do to the mental health of players if there is no football season? Where do you guys feel, not necessarily maybe for yourselves, but for your peer group in general, football players?
I think it's mental health is a big issue, but I also think that, you know, kind of the structure and the distraction of football is like very important for some kids, especially in Fairfield County and even the entire SCIAC. You know, like if they're not playing football every day, if they're not, you know, being focused on football, they could be doing something else and getting in trouble. So, you know, I think the structure of football for kids is extremely important.
You guys, all athletes always tell me their grades are better in season than they are out of season because of that structure, and you don't have time to procrastinate. And do you guys find that to be the case?
Definitely, you know, like when I look at my transcript every year, I see the fall semester, and I'm just like, wow, how did that happen? You know, you have so much more time in the spring. I mean, you're still working out, but like it's just, when you have practices till 7 o'clock every night, you know, you just got to go home, do your homework, go to bed, wake up and do it again. And when you have that structure, it's just, it's so hard to get off of it, and then taking that away would just, I don't know personally what that would do to me or what it would do to my teammates or anyone in the state, but like I just don't think it would be as productive as playing football.
Kind of curious, and we'll finish up with you guys. A couple more questions, but have at any point you've been worried about playing football, worried about your health or any of your teammates that you know of? Is anybody that you know of that would maybe opt out, like has happened on the college or professional level?
No, my team, no one's like said that they wouldn't play or anything like that because they've just looked at the numbers and they're like, odds of me getting are low, odds of me being in bad condition are low, so I want to play.
Yeah, my team, you know, no one has come out and said that they wouldn't play. If they were to do that, you know, I totally respect it. You know, they have the right to do that, but yeah, all of my teammates and even kids I know from other towns, you know, they want to play.
Fairfield County was very hard hit early on. Do you guys know anybody that had COVID or got very sick or died from it?
My grandma had it, who's 86, but she didn't go to the hospital. She just stayed at home.
Right.
And we delivered her meals, so that kind of gave me hope, and clearly she survived it.
What do you say to people, including me, that would say something like, okay, you guys done a really terrific job in cohorts and, being careful and everything, and obviously someone could be sloppy by going to parties and like that, but just something as simple as somebody's dad works in New York City and he brought it back to one of your teammates, gave it to you, and you could give it to your grandma again. That's the sort of thing that's going through my mind when I was saying that I was against it initially.
Well, that could happen with other sports as well.
Yeah, that's sort of my whole take on that as well. Like, I've had conversations with kids on our team. Like, we have some players who, are in difficult situations, with high-risk parents, high-risk grandparents, and, it's really hard to sort of make that decision, but I think all of them are confident in what the state will do, and they know that, like, if we do play football, which I hope we do, it will be in a safe way. So I think that's sort of the end game there. And if, like what Matt said, if people do opt out or they don't want to play and they don't want to take that risk, then I think everyone would respect their decision. At the end of the day, it is like a safety issue. But playing football in itself has always been a safety issue, with concussions and injuries. Like,
Right.
I don't think many of these people see it as anything different than that, just as another safety precaution.
Okay, we'll finish up. Last question for you guys. Hopefully we're going to have an exclamation point on this one way or another tomorrow maybe, or early next week, I would think. Are you guys mentally prepared for either outcome?
I think we're clearly going to be hoping for and praying for that there's a season on, and I don't think we want to even think about the final decision being cancellation of the season totally.
Yeah, we're definitely hoping for a season. We're not really thinking about not having a season. We're really just thinking positively.
I think we're mentally prepared for any outcome. We're obviously all hoping for it, and our coach has preached it throughout the whole thing that he wants us to play football. He knows that he thinks there's a good chance and almost positive that we will play football at some point in this year. Just if the CIAC keeps saying there's another meeting, I don't know how much longer us kids can really keep that going and keep positive and focused during that.
I think it would be it might be a little bit worse if they don't have a season, just because they've toyed with us for so long. When they came out and said no 11-on-11 football, a lot of kids were really devastated, and that was a big blow. But now if they come out and say, yeah, we're done, that's just even more of a toll on kids' minds, and I think that would be really devastating.
I think it's pretty obvious to the audience why I asked these four guys to come on. You guys really did a great job of getting your viewpoint across, and I want to thank you for coming down and joining us tonight, and I really hope the next time I see you all, it'll be on your respective home fields getting ready for a season. So thanks a lot, and good luck with the final outcome.
Thanks so
Thank you
much,
for having
guys.
me.
Appreciate it.
Okay, and we're gonna switch over right now, and the players are gonna go. We're gonna wipe down the microphones here, and then we've got our all-star cast of coaches coming on. While we're waiting, Jake.
Yeah, the next time we want to see him is complaining to
Yeah.
us about they should be ranked higher in the poll. That's joy.
I'd rather have. I could live with that. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, that's
I
good.
can
that
live with
sounds
that.
awfully
Though.
good right now, doesn't it?
I'm still puzzled by Lamont the yesterday in terms of again, yeah, football's over, but it's not over. What do you still see the door being open, and if so, how much?
This is what I take from it. First of all, he said, and he kind of misspoke, saying that the local leagues make the decision. Well,
That was a big one.
let's be clear, folks. The individual school districts are going to make the decision.
The FCIAC doesn't decide we're playing,
No,
but the other leagues
and,
aren't.
And even the CIAC doesn't. They serve at the beck and call of the various school districts around the state. They can make the schedules, and they can say, and even above the individual school districts, the governor has executive power. And with the the emergency powers involve a COVID. I mean, a lot of this stuff is like restaurants opening. There's different committees and different sanctions here, and athletics is one of them. And I'm looking for some clarification too of why some youth sports are allowed here, but high school sports aren't. And much to my dismay, when I brought that up on Twitter and social media last night, I was immediately shouted down saying, "Oh, you're trying to shut down youth sports now also." So, I mean, the people on the polar opposites are just, I'm about at the end of my rope with them, but keep on tweeting because it's just, it's good for your mental health, but, if not mine. And but I like this, that's what I'm saying. Well, we need clarification on a lot of things and people to stand up, man up, woman up, and say, yeah, this is the call and this is why. And like I said, if you wait till the end of September, near the end of September, and get the latest data, then we'll make a final call. Then say, hey, you know what? This is democracy in action.
Yeah, I think
democracy could be messy, but we fought it out to the end.
Well, stay the course right now, which is with what the CIAC's latest plan was. Have modified conditioning, make sure there's 2 weeks, everything goes well, and then there's contact. Well, we have 4 other people here joining us right now who I think have some opinions on that as well. We have an all-star coaching staff joining me right now. We also have Kevin Callahan from Ridgefield High School, Mitch Ross from Fairfield Ludlow, who's been very active behind the scenes and coming up with some ideas for scheduling and also organized a letter writing campaign that we'll discuss. From Danbury High School, we have Augie Tieri, who may be the only person who tweets more than I do, I think. And from New Canaan High School, the winningest coach in the state, Lou Marinelli. Guys, thanks a lot for taking the time. What's the last month been like for all of you in terms of just your own mental well-being and more so trying to coach a team and get ready for maybe not season?
Well, I think we've been really consumed with our kids, and worried about them. I know for me, the hardest thing was Fridays speaking to my seniors, and then to see that open up again and to watch them go through the emotional ups and downs they're going through has been very difficult. And I think for us as coaches, we've had to, speak to them in a manner to keep them engaged, but also our kids are smart kids. They know what's going on. And, that's where the relationship builds between them because they know that, honestly, we're all trying to be on the same page and we're trying to work it out together. So we've taken this step by step. We met Friday and still went out and got some work done. Try to do something that would be a little bit more enjoyable for them, but, we just need to have direction. I mean, we need to have a plan, and we need to know which way we're going with it, which we don't know right now.
Mitch?
It's been difficult for all the coaches, all the teams, especially the kids. This up and down, yay and nay, has been really reflective of what I think is poor direction at the top. It's not fair to these kids to tell them one day you're on, then 2 days later you're off, the next day you're on. And it's not that each group never really changed. DPH kept with their opinions the whole time. CIAC kept with their opinions. And they were supposedly having all these meetings, yet it's like they never talked. They never made a decision. This isn't like the spring season where it's a big unknown. We've known the numbers haven't changed in 2.5 months. So everybody talks about being fluid, but in fact, it's not being fluid. It's being indecisive. And at this point, we need a decision because otherwise we're dying a slow death. Every day that goes by is a day of our season that's taken away. So we need a decision, and we need a decision very quickly.
Augie?
Yeah, for us, I mean, it's just been constantly adapting to all the changes that have occurred, trying to stay positive, trying to keep our kids positive and focused on the things that we can control. There are a lot of things at stake here. And when you look at the passion that we have as coaches for our kids and how hard we fought for this, there's a lot of driving forces behind that. I heard a couple of the seniors here, and even our underclassmen talking about recruitment. There's so many variables out there you know, the ripple effect of what's going on even at the NCAA level. You know, you look at what the NCAA has been able to do for their players in granting seniors an extra year of eligibility, which is a great thing for them. It impacts our 21 recruits. You know, our seniors this year who are looking to get into colleges, you know, if those are roster spots that were going to be vacated, that they would have been able to be recruited in, then now it's going to be that much harder for them to get recruited. And then you couple the fact that they're not going to have a season, they're not going to have senior year of film. So, you know, we constantly adapt. We constantly try to keep them positive and focused, again, on the things that they can control and create opportunities for them. But there's only so much, and it's a very crippling feeling to know that there's only so much that we can control and that we're at the whim of these decisions.
I spoke to you for about 5 minutes Saturday after the CIAC announced they're canceling it, and I've heard you sound happier after you've lost to Darien. So, you know, what about from your standpoint too?
With our program, you know, it's the seniors get first shot, and as you come up, they've put their time in freshman, sophomore, and you know, JV, but now it's their year. And you take a kid like our quarterback that's had to sit behind Drew Pine for, you know, all this time, and now it's his shot, and it seems like it was just taken away, just like that. It's really heartbreaking for those seniors. I can't tell you. And trying, I think I'm hearing the same thing from these guys. When you try to keep, we're only supposed to be practicing an hour a day, and you're doing the same thing over and over again because I haven't given out equipment yet. So, you know, to keep them engaged and try to keep them in cohorts of 10, I think, you know, our kids, our seniors especially, have done a great job with their leadership. My coaching, the guys that coach for New Canaan have done a tremendous job in doing that. But it's starting to get old. You know, we need a decision. And, you know, I hopefully, I cannot see, you know, with the numbers the way they are and the way they've been, why you can't start it, and then if there's a spike, then pull it back. But it has, you know, it's just amazing to me, absolutely amazing.
Can I go back to the football committee meeting in August that was voted 9-1 to send it to spring? What I had heard at that point was that there was a lot of pressure from the superintendents that wanted to go to the spring. And so that day I called the head of the Superintendent's Association of State, Fran Rabinowitz, and she told me no, there was no organized superintendent thing afoot, and that she had actually talked to, I believe, like a board, and they were split. And she goes, we want to follow the DPH. That's what we want to do. Would you have voted to move it to spring on that day, all four of you guys, or what were you thinking? The vote was 9-1 with one abstention. I was told it. When you saw that before the CIAC came back, and hey, they usually follow the committees, what they say, and then someone told me that football would have acted differently had they known all the other sports were going to want to play. But I was just wondering what was kind of going through your mind that day when you heard it was 9-1, we're going to the spring.
I think we had a pretty good sense of the indecisiveness that was going on from day one. And I know when that happened for our standing, we stayed the course, looking to hopefully go with our fall schedule. And knowing that if we did that, we'd be preparing our young men well, that if we had to make the change, then we could certainly adapt to that. I feel that if, as coaches, you know, one thing we learned is we need to have the ability to be a chameleon. And, you know, that is tested at this moment. And, you know, our flexibility needs to be a strength right now in order to not only keep things going for most of all our seniors, but also to keep our programs and the structure and the culture we've established with our programs, and to make sure that we maintain those that we've worked so hard to get. So when we got news with that, I mean, you could go out one day to the next, it seems, and pursue a different end. And I know personally we stayed the course and hoped for the fall because we didn't know what was going to happen. And then if we had to go to the spring, we certainly would have prepared for that well if we had the chance.
I think one thing that's been bandied around and I think people don't understand is that the superintendents are going to follow DPH. So whatever DPH says we can't play, the superintendents aren't going to say fine. So it really starts with DPH. In that spring vote there, they were talking about carving out the season. Well, that would have been fine. All our guys want to do is play the most meaningful season they can. By meaningful season, at least 8 games. Okay, talk about like 3-game season, 4-game season, 7-on-7. It's all too much work. It's not, these kids didn't just wake up today and decide to play football in 2 weeks. They've been working towards this for a decade. So to tell them, oh, your senior year is now going to be 4 games or 5 games or 7-on-7, and that's the end of it, that's just not right. I think we all would have liked to start as early as we could. We understand the schools have to get going and see how that goes, but that's football start as soon as possible, 2 weeks maybe after school starts. You go for as long as you can go. If the numbers get bad, the metrics get bad, the season can be halted and then re-picked up on March 1st. And that way we have the best chance for the longest season while not disrupting the spring sports. Because if we got 2 games in or 3 games in, then we could get another 5 games in and they would still have their full season. Even regardless, if they push their season back to the end of June, they could get their full season in anyway. I mean, I'm not sure anybody's going to be playing state playoffs throughout the entire state, this year altogether, unless we have a vaccine. So there was a time to do this and a way to do this, but by this constant delay, we're running out of time.
With if the football committee, if that vote had stood, would you guys have been able to deal with it a little bit you wouldn't have liked the outcome, but could you have understood it a little bit easier? This our football committee, these are some of our peers, and they voted move to spring. Okay, that's what we got to do.
As someone that was thrown off the football committee because they didn't like the, and I'm not the only one. I think that the CIAC plants what they want, and they'll find people that will bring that in. And as far as spring goes, if that's all we could get, then I think we all agree that we would take a spring season. But who's to say that the numbers are going to be any better then than they are now? And the numbers are great right now. And it's something you can pull back if there's a spike. I just don't understand it.
Mitch, you're the one person here with a medical degree. You're a dermatologist, and I published the letter that was signed by all the FCIAC coaches, but I know you were the impetus and sort of the driving force in putting it together with a well thought out plan. How did you come out with that? And if you want to just briefly let our viewers know what your plan is.
Well, first of all, everybody talks about metrics. We're following the numbers. We're doing this quantitatively, but they're not. Okay, Connecticut, we have a 0.7% positivity. It recently bumped a teeny bit, but there's, I believe, 500,000 kids between the age of 10 and 19 in Connecticut. Total number of COVID cases in that group's 2,500. So we're talking about less than 0.5% in this age group who've tested positive. Now, does that mean only 2,500 kids have it? No, because there's a lot of kids who go asymptomatic, but it's not affecting this group very much. The hospitalization rate for the 10 to 19s are very low. The deaths, 1 death, and in all of Connecticut from the age group 10 to 19. So this isn't a group of individuals that's affected very much. So one is, I'm looking after my seniors, but if my seniors were 80 years old, I would say we can't play football. But they're 17 and 18 and 16. So it's a different group. This is not a group at risk. Now, I do have a player who has a pre-existing condition. And I told them 6 weeks ago, you're not to come back, period. I said, maybe in the spring when there's a vaccine. I have a coach who has an immunosuppressed kid at home. I said, you're not to coach this year. So we have to be protecting those people who are vulnerable, but not the kids who aren't. They can make their free choice. People can decide, we're going to play or we're not going to play because of the risk. Their parents can help them decide what they want to do and what's appropriate for them. But it's not right to tell a whole group because certain groups in the population are susceptible, that you can't do anything. This is not a group that's really at risk any more than they are at risk for the flu or from auto accidents or from many other health issues. So I think we're putting a lot of burden on our young people that we shouldn't have to be. I think we need to change the focus to protect those people who are susceptible, including teachers, including coaches. A teacher who's over 70 years old, a coach who's over 70 years old, somebody with a pre-existing condition. Those are the people that need a ton of protection. And if you're worried about sports, passing COVID around, well, first of all, there's no stats out there at all that shows sports are more dangerous. And I guarantee you, if it is, then why don't we have football players do remote learning, or all athletes do remote learning, while the kids that aren't in sports go to school? For us and for our kids who are playing football and playing soccer and playing all these sports, they're getting their socialization from sports. Whereas kids who aren't playing sports need school to get their socialization. So that too makes sense. And then you would have an instant study on, which group got more COVID? The kids playing sports or the 700 kids in school who are passing each other in the hall every day? And I guarantee at the end of the day that those 600 kids in the school passing each other every day are going to have more COVID than the 22 kids out on the football field. So it's just not right when they're saying they're following metrics when they're not.
Well, I would challenge a couple things there, and you've obviously really thought this out, and telling a kid who's got some problems, he can't play, and a coach, that's, to my mind, to be really lauded. But I don't think you can dismiss the possibilities of a kid either in school or on the team getting positive for COVID and then passing it along to his family, and it's a very contagious disease, and that can happen. And the other thing was, are you telling me that you think football is no more of a risk than cross country?
I think that it's not been shown that football is any more of a risk than soccer. In fact, I would almost bet you it's less of a risk. We have helmets on, we can put shields on, soccer's sweating, heading the ball together. So I don't see any rationale why football's more dangerous than soccer.
I would challenge that too. On the head-to-head combat of those linemen, how many plays are there in a high school game? 100, 120? And some of those guys go two ways, pounding every time. Hike, boom, hike, boom. Let's be honest, there's contact there.
With a helmet and with a potential shield on.
Well, there's sweat, there's body contact.
There are also shields out there.
Yes, yeah, I know.
And
I'm not saying that I'm against it, but it's like, I just don't think you're going to win a battle by saying that you don't think football is any more dangerous than soccer is not. I can tend to not disagree with you on that, but it's not safer than cross country. And it's people, when you have to, you don't have to convince me, the people have to be convinced of the DPH, who have shown no signs of telling anyone that there's a way to make this happen. There's people out there like the governor's office saying like the spring, and you hear that maybe they'll be looking at some things, but the DPH is just saying high risk. Proved, and even the governor today said they got to go into that meeting tomorrow, and the CIAC's got to convince the DPH that it's how you can make it safer.
Well, I think that's part of the problem. Sorry to interrupt. I think that's part of the issue. I think what you're hearing from Mitch are a number of different methods and ways to mitigate the risk. And you're not hearing that from the other side specifically. You're not seeing the same level of transparency. You're not seeing these ideas being discussed.
100% agree with you on that.
And if you listen to all the suggestions that were made, and we can sit here as a panel and we could probably talk for hours and come up with more.
Right.
The splash shields, right? The guards that are preventing some of the exchange of fluids, right?
Right.
Talking about being able to opt into distance learning to help mitigate the risk and the amount of exposure. Okay, these are real solutions that are being presented from our side, and articulately, And, you know, these are science-driven, these are real decisions, these are real ideas that can be implemented, and that have shown that we are willing to go the extra mile to facilitate that, okay? The other factor, too, is you look at these, you know, I coach at the biggest school in the state of Connecticut, okay? We have 3,400 kids in our school. Do you think that we can screen every single one of our kids on a day-to-day basis? But I'll tell you who is being monitored on a regular basis is our student athletes, okay? Our full sports athletes are going through a screening process every single day they walk on the field. And they're being accounted for.
Right.
They're not at the mall hanging out after school. They're not going to hang out with their friends. They're not unsupervised. They have a very structured environment that they're operating within. And we are suggesting ideas and ways and methods to continue to make that even more structured. When you talk about the contact, and I know that's the elephant in the room, okay? As much as the optics of that look a certain way, we have two of the best linemen in the state, perhaps in the region. I love these guys. They're phenomenal linemen. But they'll tell you, if they're making more than 3.5 seconds of contact at the line of scrimmage on any given play, okay, then they might as well skip and go right to the pros. I mean, the amount of contact that's actually taking place during the game is not as much as it seems. And then if you're taking all these precautions to help mitigate the risk, in addition to that, I don't think it's as bad as it's being made out to be.
Well, you know, I agree with that to an extent, and I totally agree that from the side of the football, they've been pushing ideas and certain numbers and certain, you know, solutions. And all I've heard from the DPH is this is a high-risk sport, and nothing's changed, and we can't change it. That's what I'm saying. I don't know where the hope is from the DPH. Governor's office, maybe. And it sounds like he really wants to, I don't want to say push it off, because I don't think it was anything wrong for me in the summertime to say, put football in the spring. I really, because I wanted them to have a season, football to have a season.
See, I don't think we necessarily disagree with you there at all, but I think what we get back to, what Mitch is making a point, is we're talking about opinion. That's your opinion.
Right, absolutely.
Right, and
absolutely.
we're also talking about the DPH has an opinion. It's not science and factually based, because it can't be at this point.
They say it is. This is the word, that word.
Who are they getting their advice from? Right.
Yeah.
Which doctors are telling them? Because obviously the doctors at the ACC and the SEC and what's the other one? Are different.
Big 12.
The Big 12 are different than the doctors that are advising the Big 10 and the Pac-12.
It's who's science, Lou. That's what everybody. When everybody throws the word science at me, I go, who's science? Right. And I've come to this. I know everybody here is either angry or exhausted by it, but I got to tell you, as this has gone along, there have been a lot of flaws in the system have been exposed. More knowledge has been exposed also, which is a good thing. And that's why I know you want an answer now, but I'm telling you, if you push it out and say the answer is going to be on September 25th, and that's the last day, cut off, bang, and we're going to take the latest, best science. I think you're going to get, and someone's going to be, excuse my French, pissed off, but that's the best solution in my mind, because if the governor comes out tomorrow and says, you know what, we're going to push it to the spring, and you guys are going to go like, God, you didn't give it all on the fall. And then maybe the spring, like you said, March 10th when it rolls around, numbers might be worse. I'm telling you, I think the numbers will be worse on March 10th than they are today. That's just a guess. I'm a sports writer.
You just made a point, though, that during the process, we've seen a lot of glitches and a lot of problems in the process. However, what you haven't seen is the glitches and problems with these coaches and these players. Because you know what we've done? We followed everything we were told to do. Right. We started up on July 6th a workout program, going outside and testing our kids and moving our equipment and finding equipment and doing everything. And they shut us down for a week for absolutely no reason at all. And then kicked us back up again. So yeah, there's a lot of falls in what the system is doing, but we have followed every step of the way. We have been those soldiers. We have gone the 60 minutes. We have done the cohorts. We have done everything. These guys have done everything we've asked. In the meanwhile, there's the slippage and there's the mistakes and there's the things in the system. We're trying to just play ball and we're doing everything we're told to do.
Right.
And
What?
putting all the energy and
Look
effort.
at
And there, you know what, Ken? Therefore, I say, having played all sorts of sports and having covered all of them, I'm jealous of not having played football because of that sort of. There's a certain discipline and camaraderie, and that is important in that. And I know nobody wants to hear that, but I think what the guys have done is applauded. It doesn't get you a college scholarship. It doesn't. It just. Let me just say publicly, I admire that greatly.
Okay,
Because of
but,
those kids?
Yeah.
but what about the other states? Okay, we have Texas, Alabama, Indiana, all these states playing football with positivity rates of 5%, 7%. Yet we have yet to hear a major problem. Utah's on their 5th game going next week.
Right.
And there hasn't been a big outbreak. Teams haven't been shut down on a regular basis. They've had no problem, and they're starting 500% worse than Connecticut is. Out of all the states, Connecticut has the best positivity rate. If anybody can play football, play sports, open schools, open the economy, it's Connecticut, not
Which is why
these
we
other
should
states.
stay the course at 2 more
Hey.
weeks and see where we're at after school's been in 2 weeks, and then on September 21st, where we were a week ago, if the numbers remain
the
positive, then you introduce contact football
There's an article that just came out yesterday on Football Scoops. It
Yeah, I
says
saw
Football
that.
Scoops,
over
yeah.
1,000
Yeah.
high school games and no spike.
Right.
You know, and we have lower numbers.
Right. Now
There's no
they're
reason.
going to, at the heart of that, and look, that's what I was talking about the weeks in. That is a strong argument, in my opinion. But no one's hired me except for Hearst, and then before that, the Hartford Current. But I think that's a really strong argument. If you took the various states and came out and said, look, these guys had these kind of numbers, these are all the games been played, this is what's happened. This is real-time facts. But
And you can always pull it back.
yes.
Right.
If there's a spike, you can pull it back.
Here's your metrics.
I mean, I know you want to prevent the spike, but you go incrementally, which is,
What I hear from the other side, and they have not been nearly as loud as obviously, and I think there's been a real effect by the kids and all protesting. I could be dead wrong, and it may not be a season this fall, but I am certain that there's been an effect. Hey, look, the governor's meeting with the people tomorrow. I mean, there's been an effect. But they're going to say, our numbers are great because of what we've done. So let's continue to stay on that course. And you guys say our numbers are great, and let's open it up to things that we believe can be safely
You
done.
know, our numbers would be a lot better if every single individual in the state stayed in their room for 24/7.
Right.
The point is not extinguishing the virus. Okay, that's not going to happen
Right.
until we have a vaccine and herd immunity. So that's a false choice. The DPH hasn't given us one fact, not a single fact, that shows that football is important in the spread of COVID. Now, people getting together is important. Is football more important than getting together in school? Is football more important than going to a restaurant? Is football more important than having a protest? Okay, these are all things. People get together, there's an increased risk. But why not play football? Why not say you can't go to school, you can't do this? People have to live their lives, and you can't lock everybody in a cell and say, okay, we're going to extinguish the virus that doesn't affect this age group anyway very significantly, because we don't want anybody to get sick. We could say the same thing for the flu. We could say the same thing for any communicable disease. It's just taking it way past the level that this was ever intended. We're way past flatten the curve to 0.7% and 0.8% and 0.9% and 1% for now 2.5 months. So when is it safe?
Kevin and Augie, you both alluded to this. I don't think people really know it. I don't know it 100%, but what are the protocols you have to do in terms of school's over, or even before during the summer, in terms of when the kids show up for practice and when you send them home? Because I know there's a bunch of different protocols that you have to go through.
There's a questionnaire that the kids have to fill out every day to make sure that they feel well enough. We don't necessarily take the temperature of every kid, but there are protocols that are done that way. An interesting thing, they should really poll the doctors in the state and get their opinion to see, because I'll tell you, the doctors I've talked to, I mean, I haven't heard too many against, but maybe they're just talking to a football coach. They just try to keep the old guy quiet. I don't know.
Yeah, we're hunting down some doctors this week, some epidemiologists around, so hopefully we'll get a fuller input because, that's it. I admire. I mean, you have to go through all these protocols. I mean, just to cover a professional sporting event now, it's like we have to sit so far away, get our temperature taken. I filled out 3 forms to cover the Patriots' first game without Tom Brady. I wasn't even looking what I was saying there. I think that if I have a cough, if I cough in the press box, they'll probably arrest me. But but I mean, I just don't think that I can find the avenue that is going to unlock your ability to play in 2 weeks.
How about?
I mean, could you see
you can
it?
pull it back? If there's a spike,
Yeah.
that's the lock. If there's a spike, pull it back.
That to me is the crux of the issue right now, and the
I mean,
door
who are you
being
gonna
open.
convince,
Where
though?
does DPH?
Yeah.
The way everything's going, DPH has to change its stance in terms of football being allowed. What's going to happen tomorrow to change that?
Right.
What's the CIAC going to say to DPH that
They
DPH is
haven't
going to
already-
say, oh, okay, we understand now, go ahead and play football?
I'm sorry. I think that we have examples all around us, all around the country, that we didn't have in front of us just a couple of months ago when these decisions were first made. When the DPH first made their stance, there wasn't football games being played all over the country.
Right.
I mean, as we speak, an NFL game is about to be played, right? We've had a multitude of college games that have gone off safely, high school football games. Now we have more evidence in front of us. If we're talking about the science and we're looking for tangible evidence to make an educated decision on this, look no further than the football games that are being played all over the country. So we have more information in front of us now. Let's reevaluate that, and let's please bring that into the discussion and make that part of what we're talking about and part of the decision-making process here. I think it has changed, and we keep talking about. I keep hearing the word fluid, which at this point, the only fluid it invokes the thought of is vomit at this point, okay? The fluidity, right? So let's have an equally fluid response to this fluid situation. And I think that's all we're asking for.
What did it mean to all of you as coaches to see what the players did yesterday going up to Hartford?
Not surprising. I mean, the passion's there. I mean, and we're certainly still involved in this game because of our passion. And I think to visibly see that was just so impressive. I mean, you didn't have to, I mean, the speakers were great, but you didn't have to listen to a word. Just being there said it all.
Have you sort of seen it as the state now has become one football community? It's not your team, but it's not the FCIAC, it's the entire state of Connecticut.
If you listen to those kids and previously, I mean, I think you get that feeling that they've kind of banded together on social media, and it's really nice to see. Nice to see.
Do you find yourself listening to them as much as talking to them during this point, or what's kind of been the coach-player process for you guys? Take me inside the heart-to-hearts that you have that might be different now than they were being any other season. Lou, you've had a million seasons, so I think you can answer this one. You're the one who told me you're going to coach in a bubble, so.
It's true. It's hard because we're supposed to be the adults. We're the ones that's supposed to have all the answers.
Right.
We help them through all kinds of problems, in a crazy time of their life where, if they get into a fender bender, they think it's the worst thing that's ever happened in their life. So we help now. We can't even help them through this because we don't know.
Yeah.
And it's crazy. It's absolutely, I don't know.
That's what I say about the science. When people say they have all the answers in the science, it's like just that answer. You're stuck trying to. If some guy breaks up with his girlfriend, you've got the answer for helping him. That right? Like you said, he gets an offender bender. You got the answer. Underage drinking, we got the answer for that one, right? This one.
And that's hard. It's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard to, you know.
That's what when they're going in that meeting tomorrow, and I give them some thought. I think it's up to the governor in his office to push his own. The DPH serves at the beck and call of the governor. He appoints people, you know, and I just think that he's got to push. Like, have you thought about this metric? Have you thought about this number? Have you thought about this suggestion?
He should be in the meeting tomorrow.
He should be in the meeting, because it's really
He should be in the meeting tomorrow.
his questions and the answers that, like a lot of you guys have brought up here, and their answers to him, and then coming out and telling us is what's going to do it. Because the CIAC, they don't have the power here, and the superintendents are scared stiff that if they let people play and they get the COVID, and then there's liability for millions or whatever. But if they push the DPH and say, if we knew why they're using this one set of criteria and that's it, then okay, you know the answer. The DPH says football's not safe. I know you can disagree with it or not, but at least you'll know. They said it's not safe because of line play or what, and that's what we're going with. I would like answers, you know what I mean? Really specific answers why soccer, I was surprised by soccer. I'm glad you challenged on that, because I was surprised by soccer.
Massachusetts yesterday changed, there's not going to be any heading. They put in a bunch of different rules to allow soccer to be played. You can't, no walls, no walls on, no direct kicks. They're all indirect kicks. So Massachusetts put in some different.
And football's done the same as far as suggestions. I mean, with the shields, wearing masks, no, huddling. Let's not, basically one captain, no coin toss, or one captain up there. So there are plenty of things to do. I mean, I can't imagine that it's a really high-risk sport if everybody's wearing a mask and has a shield on. And these shields aren't, excessively expensive considering what we're spending during COVID for a ton of other things. So I think it's possible to mitigate the risk. But as I said, anytime people get together, there's a risk. It's not like these are easy decisions, but these are decisions that people are pretending they're making with knowledge and with research and with numbers. But in reality, they're not. I mean, you show me the first study and I'll be happy to admit that, football, look, football spread it X times 4 and soccer didn't, and walking in the hall in school didn't. There aren't those numbers yet. And it probably looks like there won't be from what they've seen so far in football. Is there going to be a little bump when kids get together in school? I mean, I think we'd all be shocked if there's not a little bit of bump. So people are going to have to get tolerant that this isn't a 100% safe world. There's no guarantees in this world. People are going to get the flu. People are going to get colds. Some people will get COVID. Hopefully, the people who get COVID don't have pre-existing conditions and do well afterwards. But, we can't just live in a bubble.
Do you think that basketball is riskier than football?
It's inside.
It's inside and contact.
Yeah.
My kid comes home with more sweat. He puts more sweat on other people and takes more sweat than probably, maybe like we could argue about those linemen, but certainly the guys in the skill position football don't sweat on each other as much as.
And then you had AAU basketball this whole summer without problems, and lacrosse, which is a high risk. You have the two people doing a face-off that are basically kissing in the middle, and there was no big problem. There was
a hockey tournament here though that was from out. I know they're from out of state, and I know that the side really wants to play football will point out the kids from out of state, and we have. And I can agree with that argument. We're trying to stay in tight pods to play each other, but the fact was they played a hockey tournament against each other, and there was a dozen COVID cases.
We're definitely. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's not like somebody's not gonna get COVID in a school, or somebody's not gonna. I mean, it's gonna happen. It's just, what's that risk? I mean, right now these kids. We're not talking an incidence in 10 to 19 of 0.5% currently. We're talking 0.5% in this age group. It's one of the lowest, is 0.5% since COVID started. There are 2,500 positive cases of COVID in that age group, and there are 500,000 kids since February. So that's way lower than the typical rate for the rate of any other 10-year age group. Above that is 4 times that, 8,000, 9,000, 10,000 cases in 30 to 40, 40 to 50. So this group, for whatever reason, whether it's because they have maybe some partial immunity from the cold virus, coronavirus represents about 25% of the normal cold. Maybe they have some partial immunity. Maybe they are getting it, but they have totally asymptomatic. I mean, they really believe now that it's probably 1 out of 8 or 1 out of 10 cases they're really finding. So there's probably more immunity than we know that's out there. But we just don't have the facts to shut us down in the best state as far as positivity in the entire country.
I've had several FCIAC coaches text me over the last 2 weeks, basketball coaches, saying if they're not letting us play football, forget it. We're not going to get to play. They're already looking into seeing if they could sort of have a winter AAU, because they obviously see their sport on the same par as football if they're looking to shut things down in light of, we're...
And how is the AAU safer somehow?
I'm not saying it is. I played basketball, so I know what.
I understand you're saying that, but that's the point. The point is that we're saying we can't do it because it becomes somebody's risk. Somebody has to make a decision. Somebody has to do that. But yet people can go out on their own and play lacrosse all summer long, tri-state area, play basketball, play baseball, play all these. The kids aren't stopped playing.
No.
They're playing. It's just football has never been an AAU sport. So our one venue is at the high school, and that's how we want to keep it, and that's how we want to play. But unfortunately, as of right now, they're not letting us.
Well, that would be the first question if I was the governor, saying, like, how did we get here on this? Why is, like, a parent, like, I got a text from a parent, an email from a parent yesterday. My young one's playing football, but my high school one is not going to play football.
Right.
But don't write about that, because the result will be that neither kid will play football. Right. I'm going, look, you either want me to argue, you either want me to bring the out in the light, or I can't be in the business of like protecting little Johnny, but big Johnny's, I can't, protect him too. But that is, if I'm the governor, that's the first thing I want to know.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really, now you talk about like equivocating or hypocrisy.
Yeah.
That's Exhibit A, and maybe it might not be what people want to hear. Then they shut down, youth football too, or lacrosse. But that's a huge question. I mean, you don't have to know anything about COVID or anything about sports to say, wait a minute, we're letting a 10-year-old play football, but we're not letting a 16-year-old brother play football? How do you answer that one?
Or maybe don't shut it down. Maybe use that as another example of evidence as to why we should continue.
Right. No, you're right.
You know what I mean?
I'm just saying that
it should be
the reality of the situation.
It should be consistent. Either you can play football at every age group, or you can't.
Can they stop a private organization from, because they've been going on all summer?
Well, I mean, Lamont can shut it down at some point, but
I mean, I heard
either football can be played or it can't be played.
Let me put you guys on. I don't want to put you guys on the spot, but let me tell you what I heard. I heard that there's an AAU type or get together that have contacted high schools. Hey, can we use fields? Can we use your equipment? Would you be willing to have your town play, but not on the auspices of the high school? Have you guys heard? I mean, that's not. I didn't make that up in my jolly little head.
I know it's happening.
Yeah, okay.
I know it. I've talked to people. It's definitely something that's been looked into. The biggest issue there is probably going to be, and I even heard they can take care of liability issues. The big thing is the cost of equipment.
Right.
And whether the school lets you.
Would the school let you use it? Yeah.
But how about with Michigan? The governor of Michigan reversed it.
Yep.
Okay, but somehow they brought it down to the local level. She kind of, she said, well, I don't think, I think she said, I shouldn't speak because I don't know the whole story, but I think they brought it down to the local level. Whereas if your school district, says it's okay, then, it's okay. But for those that don't want, and put the onus on the local school board or whatever.
So let's finish up one more question. We've been talking so much science, which was one of my worst subjects. So
it's my worst. But it's unbelievable when they give you that bachelor of journalism degree at University of Missouri. You become an expert in contract law, medicine, a whole bunch of things. You know.
How about let's talk football from a are at any point, do you kind of feel like you're all PE teachers and you're just sending them out for an hour of modified conditioning, or is there any part of you saying, guys, we might have a game on October 1st. I don't know if we're going to play, and I don't know who we're going to be playing, but we, X's and we got to get ready for the game.
The hour of personal training we've been running the guys through, personal trainers get paid a lot more money than we do.
Is there any football thought to how you set up what you do during these hour practices?
Well, I mean, as you probably know, we're not a big hitting team in practice. So we run through, shadow drills. So if I have 10 kids, we can really do quite a bit. The ball's in the air a lot at Ludlow, so, we're able to function with it, although it is extremely hard on my coaching staff. You have to remember, if we have 120 players, groups of 10, that's 12 groups of 10. To get in the weight room, we don't have a huge weight room at Ludlow. We can only put 10 kids there at a time. That's 6 hours of weight room work to get through. These coaches are making $3,000 a year, and I'm asking them to work, 6 hours times 7 days, 42 hours a week. It's really not a reasonable level. Never mind the kids want to, be out there with the other groups. They want to do a 7-on-7. They want to go against the first team offense, the first team defense, etc. So it is very difficult. We're sort of tempting them, but pulling it away at the last second. But that's what's allowed now, so we follow the rules very stringently, and we're putting in the hours. We just hope that at the end of the day that there's a reward that comes through and we get to play some games now and get as complete a season as we can.
All right, well, hopefully this will have some impact. Maybe some people at DPH have been watching this before the meeting, but I want to thank you all for coming down. This was really a good discussion with the four of you and with the players as well. Jeff, I want to thank you as well for making the long trip from upstate. I owe you a trip up and a dinner sometime soon.
Those ECC schools, they want to play. I mean, FCIAC's where it's at, but it's funny out. It's funny out in the hinterlands. Those small towns. They're very football centric. They might not be the bad. Killingly's obviously very good, but they love their Friday night football and as much as anybody. So there's a big push out there also.
Well, thanks a lot, everybody, for carrying me here for the debut episode of the Ruden Report live from the library. Hopefully, thanks to all of you, I don't get canceled after one episode. And thank you to everybody watching. And I'm sure we will be talking more high school football, maybe even tomorrow. So look at the Hearst papers, look at the Ruden Report, and I hope we'll see you all next on the football field. Thanks, everybody, and thanks to the staff here at the library as well for everything. Good night.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dave.